So at this point, I think what I'll do is I'll just recreate that menu system here. And again, that's a movie clip as well, right? And that's persistent. It starts in frame 1 on the keyframe and it spans the duration of the whole movie. Just a quick review, I'll jump inside there, double click it. It basically works on a 2-frame system. It's like an on-off switch. So the off switch is frame 1, if you will. And you'll notice I have the 4 layers here. In fact, I don't need layer 4. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, so 3 layers. Layer 1 is the button, and let me rename that as well. It's good to name your layers. Layer 2 is the invisible layer, which you can't see yet because it's on frame 2. And layer 1 is the action script, and they are keyframed. It's different code on frame 1 than it is on frame 2. So now I'm on frame 2. Let me describe the elements here. This is the main button in the middle, and we will use a gradient similar to what we see here. Then I have a second circle behind it, the orange button there, and then a red circle behind that, and that's another button, if you will, and that one has animation in it, which I will show you as well. And then this big green one is the invisible button, which ultimately sends us back to frame 1 when we mouse over it. So the idea here is there's a toggle going on. When I mouse over this pink button, playhead goes here. When I'm moving my mouse away from the menu and it comes across, I'll call this the water and this the island. When it crosses the water here to escape the island, it sends the playhead back to here. And those are 2 mouse over events that we will apply. Okay, so let me go back up to scene 1. So I'm just going to move this guy off the stage and I'll build a brand new one from scratch. So let's just grab this guy here. In fact, you know what? Even before I do that, I've noticed when I highlighted it, it highlighted the frame right here. It seems to be a brand new feature in Animate, which is convenient once you realize it. But if I make a change here, it will generate a new keyframe. So I need to move my playhead first to where the keyframe is for that guy. Okay, and at this point now I will move it over. And I'm just gonna kind of deselect and ignore it for now and create a brand new one, and I guess ultimately delete that one. So I will do it almost virtually the same here with the gradient, and I want you to do yours with the same kind of gradient that I'm about to apply. So I'm going to start by just creating an oval tool. Using my oval tool to create a circle. I will go over to my colors here and black for the stroke, and 4, which it was set to, and I'm good with that. And the fill, I'm just going to find, well, it hardly matters because I'm going to convert it to a gradient, but just for the heck of it, let's just pick this magenta anyway. And I'll draw a circle roughly the same size that that one was. And if I want it to be perfectly round, I do need to hold my shift key down, and I do want that. So there we have the beginning, just a circle with a stroke. I'm going to double click it, and we'll start to paint the gradient into this. Okay, so that's using the color swatches and ultimately the gradient tool as well. So I'll call up my colors. I'll take this from solid color to radial gradient, and it actually kind of gave me the colors I wanted, but in the event that you don't, because I believe this is because I was working with it already, you have your 2 color chips down here. No, let me just undo that because I accidentally generated a color chip very close. And that's what happens if you click along this line with that plus sign. It will make a new color chip. But I just wanted to highlight this one here, establish my color. So you have the hue slider here, which is the pure color, and then the tone inside of the box, if you will. So let's say, just for the sake of making a change, I'm going to move that up to there and then go over to the other one, which should be the lighter color, and just choose a much lighter version of the color you're using. Okay, and if I click away, you'll see that it generated that circle. But I don't want the highlight to be in the exact center. I actually want it to be sitting sort of in the top left area, like you see that one. So let me highlight that fill and do that with the gradient tool. So gradient tool. Now I'll actually zoom in on here. It's this little white dot in the middle that lets me move it inside like it's in a masked area, right? So I just want to push that to the upper left. And it doesn't need to be too far, but just off the center upper left. And if I click away, I can actually see the results of that. And you know what? That's perfect for what I'm looking for. I'm using my spacebar to move around here. I could also go back to fit in window here. All right, so I just have a plain, vector shape with a gradient in it. I want to make it a button, and then I want that button to be inside of a movie clip. And that's where I build the whole menu inside of the movie clip. So let's go to the next step and double click to select the whole thing. I can do this in either order. I'm going to turn it into a button first and then embed that into a movie clip through my convert. So we'll start by modify, convert to symbol, button, yes, and I'll just call this pink button. Okay, pink button, okay, and I'll double click it so that I can go in and create a mouse over feature. And what I propose to do is just to keyframe the overstate, which will carry over these colors in the gradient, so F6. Then go in and edit the colors. So I can highlight that now on the stage. I can go to my color swatches, my color palette, not swatches, color palette, and select the darker chip. And I'm just going to change the hue to like a blue. I'll leave the light color as is. I could change that as well, but since it's white, it's going to give us an interesting sort of blue to slightly pink to the light color, like that. So when it's normal, it looks like that. When my mouse goes over it, it will change to that color. Okay, let's definitely save that and move ahead. So I'm going to come out of the button now, back up to scene 1. And again, making sure my playhead is on the frame 1 here. If that's not already selected, select that button. And we're going to do another modification. Convert to symbol, movie clip. Convert to symbol. Make sure I choose movie clip. And I'll call this, now I already have one I believe called menu, my other one. So I'm just going to go menu _ Dan. Okay. So that's the movie clip now. And how do I know that for certain? By selecting it on the stage and going to my properties. The only thing I can see on the stage for sure is that it is a symbol because it has the blue marquee. But what kind of symbol? I'll need to find out in properties, and there it is. It is a movie clip. So from here on in for the menu, we're going to go inside of this movie clip and do the rest of the work there. And it will similarly resemble our last menu assignment in that it will be on 2 frames, on-off feature. Okay, so let me double click that movie clip to go inside. And now we're on the timeline for that movie clip. So it is going to be running across 2 frames. I'm going to create a couple of layers here. One for my actions on the top. And I will have an invisible button, which I don't need a separate layer, but I think it just makes it a little easier to comprehend. So I will create a separate layer. Call it invisible. And drag that to the bottom. And this middle one called layer 1, which is currently holding my button, I will call buttons with an S. Buttons. So I'm going to create some more buttons behind this one, if you will. Ultimately. So I also want to keyframe frame 2. So I'm just dragging down here on all of these because they're all going to need to be keyframed, and just hit F6. There we go. So by doing that, I have carried over the graphic as well. The other frames in the other 2 layers are currently empty, but that won't last forever. Let me just do a save right now. Now I know right away, because this is more than 1 frame, that by default Animate plays the playhead and it loops forever. So it's going to be going back and forth forever when we go for our playback, unless we stop it in frame 1 right away. So let's just deal with that and get that out of the way. I'll click on Actions. I'm going to directly put this in to my Actions window rather than using a code snippet. And you just have to type it in, all lowercase, STOP, empty brackets, semicolon. And it should color code the way you see it here. Okay? And I'm just going to collapse that menu and just move it over here a bit, if I can. Okay, so now I have a stop command. It's not going to toggle back and forth. I think we'll go to frame 2 now and create our other graphic elements, because on frame 1, this is everything. And on frame 2, we will have what is like the submenu. Let me quickly go in here and show you frame 2 like that. So we need to create this orange ring, this red ring, and this invisible ring, which is our invisible button. It sends us back to the frame 1, if you will. Go back up to scene 1, get back into this movie clip, double click it, and start to create the other elements. Now what I can do is I can just draw another circle, which I think I'll do on top, and maybe align them and then push it behind. I'll make it a plain oval. We'll remove the stroke. I'll go to the fill and I'll just fill it with sort of a school bus yellow, if you will. I can change that after the fact. And if I go to the center point on here, I can try to line it up, or I can zoom in for accuracy and start to draw out. I can actually hold down my Option or Alt key and it will draw from that center point. And if I want to constrain it to the perfect circle, I will simultaneously hit the Shift key. So I'm currently holding Option Shift, and I want it to be bigger than that. I'm going to push it behind eventually. So highlight that, convert that to a button. I'll just call it B button middle. If you have a better name, by all means. And I want to push that back. It's on top right now as far as the stacking order goes. So the way we do that is with a feature called Arrange, which is under Modify, Arrange. I can either go send backward, which is sending it one element at a time behind, or I can go send it back, which is like pushing it to the back of everything. Oh, and I see I made a slight mistake in my excitement here. I wasn't paying attention to which frame it was in. So even if I send it to the back, it's in the wrong layer. Easy fix. Easy fix. I'm just going to cut it, go down to the designated layer, and do a paste in place. And that's what happens when, that's what you should do if you accidentally put it in the wrong place, which is a very common thing. Obviously, I still do it to this day. Let's just deal with that very quickly. Cut. Go to the layer it was intended to go to. Edit paste in place, which will drop it in the exact location that it came from. And now I can do a send to back because it's on the same layer. You know, if it's a layer above, now I could have put this on a whole nother layer and put it below. This is true. But I'm keeping all my buttons on the one layer here. Modify, Arrange, send to back. There we go. Okay, now if I want to make it smaller, bigger, I guess I can. But I think I'm going to just leave it the way it is. I'm going to go in and create a mouse over feature though, so I'll double click it. Keyframe the overstate, F6. Highlight the color on the stage, go to my colors, and I'm just going to make it a darker version of what it is, like that. Okay, and if I click away, I'll be able to see that, toggling from there to there. Okay, so we'll go back up to our menu now in the navigation here, get out of the button. So I'm going to create another circle that's going to go behind that. So there's a number of approaches to this. I'm going to take sort of the most basic, which is just to redraw an oval. I could, just so you know, I could go into the library and duplicate this button, put it on the stage, rename it, then go in and make changes. It is definitely a viable option, but I'm going to keep it simple today. So I'm just going to go to my oval tool once again, making sure I'm now in the proper frame as well as the proper layer, which is frame 2 on the buttons layer. Again, I'll zoom in for accuracy here. I'll change this fill color to, let's see, in my video I had it as a dark red, like a burgundy. And now I'm just going to draw that. Now I will warn you though, because these are buttons and I'm about to draw a raw vector shape, it's a little bit weird, but the movie clips or the buttons will always sit on top of the vector shape. So when I start to draw this from the middle, it's actually going to be behind and I won't see it till I get larger than that yellow circle, if you will. So you're just going to have to a little bit go on faith here. So I'm going to line up my crosshairs here and then start to drag out, hold my Option or my Alt key down. You can see here And I then hold my shift key down, and you can see here how it's kind of coming from behind. And just make it roughly, you know, the same general width as the one we did before that. Okay? And there we go. It's a raw vector shape now. So I'm going to select that and convert that to a button. And then we'll do the animation. Modify, convert to symbol, button. I'll call it animated button because it will have animation in it. There we go. And once I convert that to the symbol, it does appear in front of everything else. I'll leave it in front for now till we're done with the animation, and then we'll push it back. So I'll double click it now. First thing I want to do is keyframe in the overstate. So that's an F6. Then the animation, I do like to create a separate layer for my animations. It just looks a little cleaner when I'm in author mode. So I'm going to create a second layer. I'll call this animated. Okay, keyframe the overstate, that's very critical here, F6. Then select that raw circle, copy it, edit copy. And I think I'm going to lock that layer 1 now just to be 100% safe. And then come up to frame 2 in the animated layer, the second layer, edit, paste in place. Okay, so it's still raw vector. What I want to do now is convert it to a movie clip and do a very simple shape tween inside of that movie clip. All right, so here we are, modify, convert to symbol, movie clip, and I'll call this red button shimmer. I don't know. There we are, red button shimmer. So let me go into that movie clip now and actually create the animation. So I'm just going to span it over, let me see, I'm going to shrink my view here a little bit, over say 40 frames, so it's not too fast. And the first thing I'll do is I'll just right click on that first frame and go create shape tween. Now when you use that command, it does automatically generate a keyframe at the end. So I can just actually click away here once and then click it and drag that to say frame 40, like that. Okay, there's nothing changing yet because I haven't changed the color. Because the idea here is, remember I said it loops, I want the color to be the same on the last frame as the first frame so that there's no jump. And I'll make the color change in the middle. So it'll ramp from the dark red to the new color, back to the dark red, and kind of cycle around. So the real change kind of happens right in the middle here. So I'll highlight that middle frame, F6 to keyframe. Oh, let me undo that because I don't know if you noticed what happened there. I accidentally selected the whole span. I actually need to go in with my control key down to select that single frame. They keep changing these keyboard shortcuts version to version. Currently, the control key down, single click, highlights the frame. And then I hit F6. And then I can select that color on the stage. Go into my color swatches. Actually, I could do color swatches, but I'm going to go into my color palette. And I'm just going to make it a darker version of it. Actually, a lighter version. So let's go up to here, lighter version. And I'll scrub through to see if I like the change. And you know what? That's noticeable, so I'm cool with that. You can go to a darker if you want. It really doesn't matter as long as I can see that it's changing. And as I say, when it gets to the end, it goes back to that color, which is the same as that, and goes through the whole cycle over again. And that's, again, how we create an animated button. So right now, if you look at the top, there's a movie clip in a button in a movie clip. So let's go all the way back up past there, back to this. Now this should be behind everything. So very simply, I'm going to select it once on the stage, modify, arrange, send to back. So there's 3 of my buttons. I do actually need a 4th one, remember, because I need an invisible button. So we're going to do that again for 1 more. But I should definitely save here. A lot of work is done. We don't want to lose any of that if the computer crashes. So one last button, and it'll be the invisible button. So rinse and repeat, as they say. The color on this one is irrelevant because it will ultimately be invisible. So I'm just going to leave whatever fill color I had. No stroke. Go to this crosshair. start to click and drag, which I won't see it yet. Hold my Alt key down, come out bigger, hold my Shift key down as well, until I can see something appear. And you know what? It can be a generous size, not a problem. So there we go. And I want to make that what we technically call an invisible button. So I'm going to go over and select it, convert it to a button, convert to symbol, button. I'll call this one invisible. Okay. Oh, I seem to already have one called invisible, so I'll call it invisible_menu. Because of my other one that I previously created, I guess. Invisible menu. Okay, so I still need to make it invisible. So I'll double click it. And the trick here is you can just click and drag that to the hit space, but let me just undo that for a second. Let's say it wasn't already highlighted there. You can't just click and drag like that. Oh, maybe you can sometimes. Sometimes it highlights. That's my point. If you click away, click on it once, pause for half a second, then grab it, it will definitely move every time and leave that circle empty, which is what you want. Nothing on the up state, nothing on the over state, nothing on the down state, only something on the hit state, which by definition makes this an invisible button. And when I come back up to the menu here, you will see it manifest as that light aqua color, like that. Okay, so the only thing I need to do now, again, is to push this behind everything else. So with it highlighted on the stage, modify, arrange, send to back. Okay, so all the construction work has now been done on our buttons. The heavy lifting, if you will, has been done. And let me remind you, frame 1 only has the pink button. Frame 2 has all the sub-menu buttons, if you will, including the invisible. So let me also explain the back and forth of this. When I mouse over this, or this is the intent, when I mouse over this, it sends my playhead to frame 2. Same thing happens on frame 2, except it happens when I mouse over this invisible button sitting sort of outside of everything else. So when I mouse over the green part, it goes back to here. So it's like a toggle switch. I mouse over that, it goes here. Coming out of here, I mouse over that, it sends it back here. And that's what creates the illusion of the on-off switch, if you will, exposing and hiding the sub-menu. Definitely want to be saving this now. So I guess we'll get into the coding for this now, and then we can get into the sub-menu elements last. We'll get the toggle feature going. So as you know, when we want to speak to buttons in code, they do need an instance name. So I'm going to highlight the button in frame 1, give it an instance name, which is up here in the properties. I'll call it main_btn. My advice when naming things such as instance names is never use spaces, use underscores or dashes. Okay, so main_btn is the instance name for that. Let's give our other buttons instance names as well, or I'll start with the invisible button. I'm going to call it go back_btn. Now I am using a capital B there. It's known as camel case. That's the only time, I know it sounds like I'm breaking my own rules in a hurry here. That's the only time an uppercase really makes sense, when you have two words together, because we don't use space. It's known as camel casing, and that again is about the only time I would use an uppercase. _btn to finish that off. Hit my tab key to enter that. And I actually have enough now to create the programming, so I think we'll do that. Let's go back to frame 1. We had already inserted a stop command in here, but now we're going to use code snippets to generate the rest of the code. So I highlight the button, which now has an instance name. I'll go to my code snippets. And we definitely want to grab it from the ActionScript folder. Open that up, and it's under event handlers. These are different mouse events. Mouse over. So I'm just going to double click mouse over event. There we go. I'm going to click away, and it's this code here that we want to replace. So we want to replace it with a go to and stop. And I'm on frame 1, so I want to tell my playhead go to and stop frame 2, which is where all the sub-menu elements are. So I'll start by replacing the word trace. Go to, capital A, capital S, so that's camel case, as I was saying. Go to and stop. It should turn blue. If it stays black, you didn't type it in correctly. And replace everything inside of the brackets with the number of the frame, which simply is a number 2 in this case. It's one of the rare times where I'll actually refer to a frame number versus a frame label. I definitely want to save that. I could test this. It's only sort of half done, but let me do a test movie here. Okay, so when I roll over it, I should see the submenu. Now I don't have the ability to go back yet, so that's what I will build next. So we'll do the exact same thing on frame 2. Highlight the invisible button. It also already has a instance name, go back _btn. Same thing, mouse over event. Double click it, replace that code inside of the function. Go to and stop, and then replace everything inside of the brackets with the frame number. In this case, it's number 1 because I'm sending it back, right? It's an on-off, back and forth. All right, I'm just going to collapse this here. Save that and test it. So now we should have our toggle on-off feature. There we go. And when I come out of here, well, lo and behold, yeah, there's our animated button, right? That's pretty cool. There's our simple mouse over, animated button. And then when I come out past that, it goes back to frame 1, which gives the illusion that that submenu disappeared. Because we are working as illusionists, believe it or not. We're creating digital illusions here. So there we have our toggle feature. It's conceivable if you go too fast, it might not work. So you could make that button a little bigger maybe, but it is working here. So we're going to live with that. And the next steps will be to do the fine-tune programming for this button, and this button.